Appalachia. Ancient mountains, dense forest, and hollows so deep the sun barely touched them. The stories that come out of these woods have been passed down for generations because nobody who experienced them ever forgot. Hey, what's up guys? My name is Nexium and welcome back to the channel. Today we are reading some of the most chilling Appalachian horror stories ever shared on Reddit. If you are new here, make sure you subscribe. And if you want to listen on the go, my Spotify podcast is linked in the description. But with that out of the way, let's get into it. I've posted this before, but it is one of the scariest stories I have ever heard. So here it is again. This story was told in our family when I was growing up. It used to scare me so bad. LOL. Anyway, my mama swore it was the truth, and she was not known to tell lies. And I should know because it was just me and her when I was growing up. Anyway, she was born and raised in a very rural and poor area of WV. Her and her 7 or 8 brothers and sisters were very poor. Because of this, and because it was what many country people did, her father raised a garden. Now, my mama nearly idolized her father and would go with him the distance from their house to the garden spot, which was a good piece off. This required that they push a wagon with wooden wheels past their neighbor's house. My mama was terrified of the old woman that lived beside them. Mama said they called her Aunt Kate. She was older and apparently had cataracts because Mama said her eyes were white. Mama said this particular summer was extremely hot and that she and her father had spent a good bit of time at the garden tending the vegetables and picking what was ready. As they pushed this big wagon up and in front of Aunt Kate's house, the old woman came out and yelled, "Harrison, my great-grandfather, give me some of them beans you got there." My great-grandfather responded, "Kate, we worked hard for them beans, and we ain't giving them away." The old woman laughed her and said that they would regret their decision. The two proceeded up the hill to their home and went about chores and other required duties. Mama said that she thought nothing more of it until it was time to sleep. According to my mama, with so many kids, some shared the bed and some on the floor where they slept with minimal coverings. Mama said she was drifting off to sleep when she heard someone or thing walk towards the room where she was sleeping. Knowing the sounds of the home, she did not recognize who or what it could be. Mama always talked about how her father would tell them stories to scare them into being good. Due to this, she was easily scared. As the walking got closer, she reported covering her head and laying still, terrified of who or what was standing in the doorway. Mama reported that whatever it was would turn and walk out of the room and back down the hallway all night long. Mama said she lay there all night, terrified and scared to take her head out of under the blanket. The next morning, as the sun arose, the thing stopped. She stated that she then heard the familiar sound of her father moving quickly to dress. Once she bolstered enough bravery, she immediately darted down the hallway and into the kitchen, where her father was placing green beans into a sack. The two did not speak, but walked quickly out the door and down the hill to Aunt Kate's house with the sick full of beans. Mama said old Aunt Kate was already out sitting on her porch, as if waiting on them to arrive. Her father said, "Old woman, take your booger back." And Aunt Kate started laughing and telling them, "Don't worry, Harrison, it won't bother you no more." Mama told other things that Aunt Kate did that alluded to her being someone familiar with the dark side. Mama was a very honest Christian lady. Like, I had to go to church every time the doors were open. And I never remember a time where I caught her in a lie or even heard her curse. And she swore Kate was into black magic. Real story here from Southern Appalachia. Not the craziest horror type story, but still scared the hell out of me. In August 2022, I solo overnight camped in the Sumpter National Forest, up in the far northwest corner of South Carolina. My third and last time ever solo camping out in the middle of the woods. I feel like I'm a pretty seasoned outdoorsman, and I wasn't that far out to where this would be irresponsible. Anyway, I parked my car on an old logging road and hiked in about 1.5 to 2 miles to the top of a ridgeline that was near an area that had just been cut by loggers, probably in the spring that year. I was at about 5 miles from the nearest sign of civilization. I was testing out some new camp gear and just getting some solitude. It was pretty and peaceful, and kinda hot and humid. Found a nice spot to set up camp right on the edge of the tree line bordering a grassy area on top of the ridge. The afternoon and evening went by without any issue. I had a cramped 1.5 man-sized tent and left off the rainfly because it was hot, so it was mostly just netting that sorta let me see out of the tent, but not well. I went to sleep and woke up from a nightmare at 4:36 a.m. I remember because I looked at my watch. The nightmare was me in my tent, exactly where I was in the exact position I was laying. In the dream, I woke up and looked to my left and saw a large dark figure with red eyes staring right at me from outside the tent. I woke up for real in a cold sweat and thought, what the fuck? That was fucked up. And maybe a minute after that, I heard a blood-curdling scream that had to be right in the vicinity of my little camp area. I was absolutely frozen in fear. It kind of sounded like a combination of an owl scream and a fox scream, if you can try to imagine. About another 30 seconds goes by that felt like an eternity, still frozen in fear, and then something big, like full sprint, stomped through my campsite. It was 100% bipedal and heavy because I could feel the vibration on the ground. I had a pistol and an AR-15 style rifle with me in the tent, both with weapon lights. I somehow mustered up the courage and grabbed my rifle, unzipped the tent and switched the light on and quickly scanned around with it. Pure adrenaline. I saw nothing, no sign of anything. At this time, there were zero sounds of bugs or critters. And if you know the South, the woods can be loud AF at night. That part didn't even hit me until later on when I was recounting everything, which made me more scared. Anyway, I stayed awake scanning the woods pretty much non-stop until first light, and quickly packed up and GTFO'd to the car. What's weird is I've been to this area many times with my brother and friends doing little campouts, shooting, and land nav type stuff for fun, and never ever had anything weird happen. Not even a weird or off feeling. Always felt safe and comfortable until that night. Since then, I've gone near that exact area again, but no closer to a mile or two, and always had dudes with me for overnight camps. Nothing strange or scary has happened since. I don't know what it was. Some people I've told said it was maybe the Dogman or Bigfoot. I truly don't know, and I don't want to. I've been a lifelong outdoorsman, living in WVE and VA, and I've had a lot of scary run-ins. From being in between a mother black bear and her cubs to being face-to-face with a mountain lion, as well as being stalked by one. But one of the scariest things was one day in an area that is called the Devil's Ditch or Haunted Branch. All of the older people say if you're going to be in it at night to have a gun or just don't go. It's extremely remote and no one lives up there. It's all a hunting reserve. Well, one day about noon, I was up there with my father, showing him some of the side trails and fire roads when we stopped at the last gate. It's the farthest you can go into it by vehicle. We were going to stop and take a break. I needed to piss, and he was looking at the maps. Well, I'm standing on a rock looking into the woods, pissing, and there's a lot of undergrowth with larger poplars growing up through it. You'd be lucky to see 5 to 10 feet into the woods at eye level. I start pissing when all of a sudden poplar trees start shaking about 10-15 feet in front of me. I'm looking up at about 20 feet in the air at the trees, and they are moving back and forth violently. While this is occurring, we heard what sounded like monkeys and almost like samurai talk. These tulip poplars were about 1 to 2 feet in diameter, 20 feet in the tree. So at the base, they were probably about 3.5 feet in diameter. Nothing should be able to move a tree like that freely. I finished pissing rapidly and walked backwards as my dad is yelling, holding his pistol. I get in the Jeep, throw it in reverse, and head back down the fire road, which was pretty rough at this time. For about a half a mile down this fire road, we can hear whatever it was yelling and making its noise at us and the footsteps. I've got chills redescribing it. And the fact that it kept up with my Jeep down the mountain, through the woods, and I could see the underbrush parting, and at one time thought I saw brown fur, but looking over my shoulder, but trying not to tear the Jeep up was a bit hard. I fish in this area, target shoot up there with buddies and hunt, and we have heard things that sound like monkeys as it gets closer to dark. Rocks have fallen off the mountainside in places where there are no rock outcroppings. Had a friend's truck get rocked in the middle of the night. And yes, there are a lot of bears, but most of the time, a bear will only mess with a vehicle if there is food in it. I'm by no means a Bigfoot believer, but I am also not a denier. I think that we are naive to think that something like that doesn't exist. Just sharing what I have experienced. And I just remembered something as I was reading back through this. When we pulled up and got out of the Jeep, the smell was almost like a bear with an almost human BO smell with it. I've smelled a lot of animals, and that smell was very unique and has stuck with me. As well as when we pulled up, it was extremely quiet and you got the feeling that you were being watched, which happens often in places like this, and I've grown accustomed to it, but this day was obviously different. I should also add it was June or July when this happened, so the underbrush was like a damn jungle. Oh wow, I feel this in my bones. My uncle, Mom's brother, has had a farm in southeast West Virginia since the 70s, long before I came into this world. Mom is the oldest of 5, and my uncle built a bunch of houses on the farm so family could use it whenever. Some live there and other, like my family, visited often. My mom and older sister and I would go for weeks on end to spend time with family. And I always loved it because I have a ton of cousins and was the baby for a long time. So mostly I tagged along with my cousins and felt extremely safe, like it was my happy place. I don't really remember anything totally out of the ordinary when I was really little. Other than I remember an imaginary friend whom I exclusively played with at the farm. Nowhere else. And we moved extensively for Dad's job, so I've lived in many different places. What I remember after age 5 was suddenly being old enough to not have to have someone walk me from and to other houses, which I thought was so cool. So I used to explore. My uncles liked to bow hunt and had taken me a few times not too far into the woods, so I was able to go back on my own and find their little tree houses they had built to hunt from. I thought they were cool little tree houses. Your story sounds a lot like the very last time I ever took off by myself in the woods without another family member. It was the winter. I wanted to be out in the snow and explore. So I found my way up the mountain. That is what I called it, but in fact it was probably just a massive hill, and into the trees. I couldn't find the spot I was looking for and got pretty frustrated with my 8-year-old self. So I sat down by a creek to catch my breath and figure out where I was. I couldn't have been sitting more than about 3 minutes when something let out a scream I can only describe as blood-curdling. I thought it was a fox, most likely, until I heard another voice crying, just weeping and wailing, and the sorrow was palpable. My cousins had always told scary stories about Appalachia, and I figured that they had followed me into the woods and were trying to scare the pants off me for shits and giggles. I called out, like, "Okay guys, not funny, okay, I'm going home, enough," and followed my footprints in the snow as fast as I could back to the farm. The screaming and crying didn't stop, stayed consistent as I moved, which really made me convinced it had to be my cousins. I don't think I heard words, just crying and screaming, but it wasn't pleasant. Made my way back to the main house, my uncle's house, which was the biggest on the property and visible from the edge of the woods, and absolutely booked it. Ran full tilt to get to the kitchen door. I remember getting through the door and slamming it behind me because I was a combo of terrified and annoyed that my cousins were playing a prank on me. The next closest cousin in age is 9 years older than me, and so I was often the butt of pranks. Well, wouldn't you know, every family member was accounted for in the living room/kitchen. The older male cousins and my uncles were in the kitchen putting their snow boots and coats on to come look for me. I had apparently been gone for several hours, and they were worried. According to my mom, I was white-faced. My hands were covered in scratches through my mittens. I guess I must have fallen or something. They were so worried I had disappeared. I should add, I set off from my aunt's to walk to my uncle's and had decided to take a detour and didn't tell anyone. Oops. I was 8 and really didn't think about how that might be bad. Mom said I looked like I had seen a ghost. I asked if anyone had come out to the woods to look for me. They said no, we've been looking at the different houses and we're just about to come look for you because they saw my footprints head into the woods. I told him about where I went and what I heard, and my uncle, whose property it was, said, oh shit, I think you probably ran into the witch. I'm over here thinking, oh, some crazy lady lives in the woods and I probably stumbled near her cottage. Nope. The witch was just what they called the unknown entity that roamed the woods, screaming, crying, mimicking people's voices, and just giving people a good old sense of doom and dread. No one had a straight answer about possible folklore or anything like that, but all my older cousins had their own experiences with similar happenings over the years. Scared the living daylights out of me, and while I've been back to the farm over the years, I can tell you I have never once set foot near the woods tree line, even as an adult. I was grateful my family didn't think I was crazy, but they said a general rule is not to be in the woods alone, so I listened. To my knowledge, nothing physical ever happened with anyone and this entity. More of a prankster than anything, but oof, the Appalachia has some wild stuff. I definitely remember some strange stuff happening during the week we had my aunt's funeral when I was 21, and random voices or red eyes or smoke apparitions on the wood's edge, but I never went to check them out after that one incident. Edit. I should add that 100% of the family that was at the farm that trip was accounted for at my uncle's house getting ready to come look for me. So if it was anything other than something supernatural, it was not from anyone staying at the farm. My granny lived in a cabin on 7 acres in Appalachian, Virginia. No cable or internet, stand naked in your driveway and the neighbor you won't see kind of place. After she died when I was in high school, we moved there. I never found the place creepy, but it scared the ever-loving shit out of all my friends. Some background. Granny had been digging and found a very long bone buried in the hillside next to a very old liquor bottle. What that means, I have no idea. It was completely glass on 2 sides of the main room. Everyone always says they feel like someone is watching them. It's wooded on one side and mountains on the other. I had 3 girls over to stay the night. I had passed out, but they were all wide awake because they were scared. My parents were asleep. They said they all distinctly heard a coin drop on the floor and roll down the hallway. There was a tunnel about 1/4 mile up the road from the cabin's driveway. Nothing to do in that town. Teenagers sacrificed animals there in the 90s. Everyone says it's demonic. When a couple of the same friends and I were coming under the tunnel at night, something was in the road and I almost hit it. It was fleshy and twisted, bigger than a raccoon and smaller than a person. I was driving, so I didn't look back, but my friend turned around and got a better look at it. I to this day have no idea what that creature was. Stopped going under the bridge at night. Another time, coming under the bridge by myself in broad daylight, the radio cut out as I was coming into the curve of the tunnel entrance and started playing a very distorted and garbled clip of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. It sounds funny, but it was chilling. Every hair on my body stood up. As soon as I was away from the bridge, the radio signal came back in. I drove under it all the time and never had a signal issue before or since. I'm pretty sure that entire area was just cursed or something. And that is going to wrap up today's video. Appalachia has a way of reminding you that there are things in this world that cannot be explained. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like and subscribe and comment down below which story got to you the most. And if you have your own story, just send it to my email in the bio. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next one.